listening to the Marriage Clinic podcast, a podcast on love, marriage, and personal development. Our purpose is to inspire and equip you with knowledge and skills to enable you to have lasting and fulfilling relationships. Now your host, Joshua Mulgrew.
Hello. Good evening if you're watching from Ghana or you're listening or watching to this live. This is the Marriage Clinic podcast, and it is your favorite uncle who is here with you, Uncle Josh. My name is Dr. Joshua Mulgrew, but I prefer to be called Uncle Josh. I like being called Uncle Josh because in the African context, you can have an uncle you're older than, and then you can have an uncle that you're younger than. You can have an uncle who is your age mate. So it puts me in a place where I can give you uncle advice from the African and Christian perspective. We are so happy with the people who are watching, people giving us feedback. I happened to go somewhere where I wasn't known, and I heard people say Uncle Josh. And once I heard that, I said, yes, Marriage Clinic podcast is going fast. So thank you so much for hitting the share and the like button. And when you leave a comment, it really does make a difference. So just type in the comment section if you're watching it on any of the social media platforms that allow typing in. Just type in hello Uncle Josh, or good evening Uncle Josh, or I'm listening Uncle Josh, and it will make a great difference. All right. So let's go. Today is interesting. I'm going to be speaking on 10 simple communication tips that make a big difference in marriage. Now, it makes a big difference in marriage, but I still think it's applicable for people who are dating. So if you're in a relationship, it will be helpful. But I'm going to be focusing on people in marriage. Now, before we do that, I like to give you a verse for the week. And today we're taking it from James chapter 1, verse 19. And it says, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. I like that. It says, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. All right? Great. Communication is a big deal. All right? When I sit with couples, when I look at my marriage, when I look at problems that occur, we realize that a lot of the time, people's problems are bigger because there was poor communication. So yes, there may be a problem, but how we talk about the problem is extremely important. So today, I'm going to give you 10 simple communication tips that make a big difference in communicating with your spouse. Number 1, which is very important, take turns talking and listening. Take turns talking and listening. Take turns talking and listening. Let me explain. This means allowing each other to fully express their thoughts and feelings without interruptions. When you are talking to each other. I know some people have what they call, I should have one here. They call it the talking pen. It could be the talking pen. It could be the talking remote. It could be the talking wristwatch, the talking phone. Ideally not the phone. But as long as one person is holding the talking pen, the other person cannot speak until they are holding the talking pen. What does that do? It allows me to be able to say everything on my heart without you interjecting or asking questions that cause me to move from what I'm trying to say. So a tip that is going to help you in marriage is when one person is talking, the other person should shut up and listen. Active listening is key to solving any and every marital problem. So take turns talking and listening. When he is talking, you should be doing the listening. Don't interject with, this life is not fair. And how could you say that? No. You are listening to everything, even when he is telling a lie. Listen. And when you have your chance to talk, you talk. All right? So for instance, if a wife is talking about her frustration with household chores and all the things in it, and you, the man, listen. This is not the time for you to say, well, I close late from work and it's not. No, you are listening. Listen, let the person get everything off their chest, and then you now come in with what you have to say. So number one is take turns listening and talking. And call it Uncle Josh's talking pen. Get a talking pen in your marriage. And anyone who is holding the pen can talk. Whoever does not have the pen needs to keep quiet. The second thing is pay attention to nonverbal cues. Some people even estimate communication to be as much as 80 to 90% nonverbal cues. I could say, for instance, are you coming? I could say, are you coming? And I could go, are you coming? All three mean different things. Your wife could ask you, how is the dress? And you could go, it's beautiful. You could go, it's beautiful. And you could go, it's beautiful. Now, if you are listening to the podcast you wouldn't be able to see the nonverbal cues. But these three, it's beautiful, say three separate things. The first one says it's beautiful, but I'm distracted, so I really didn't look. The second one is I'm in awe. Wow, that's beautiful. And the third one is I really don't like it, but I'm not up for a fight and a long conversation about a dress, so I'm just saying it's beautiful. So when you are communicating, pay attention to non-verbal cues. Brings me to number 3. Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt. If you're watching now, this is a good time to type in don't interrupt. You see, interrupting your partner can be dismissive and prevent them from fully expressing themselves. For instance, if I walked into the room, or if your spouse walked into the room and said, I really need us to discuss the children's school fees. And the other partner goes, what again? You've interrupted. And it will keep the person from actually saying what they wanted to say. So whenever your partner is speaking, try your best, even if you're upset, to hold yourself and not say things and interrupt them. Allow them to talk, because you see, in communication, it's not just listening to reply. It's listening to understand first. It's more important to understand your partner than to reply your partner. This is the Marriage Clinic podcast, in case you forgot. All right. So we said number 3, don't interrupt, brings us to number 4. Use I statements instead of you statements. I statements instead of you statements. I statements instead of you statements can help you prevent blame and defensiveness. By expressing how you feel, you can communicate your thoughts without attacking your partner. Okay? For instance, when discussing communication issues, a wife may say, I feel unheard when you interrupt me, instead of saying you never listen. Okay? For instance, you can say, I feel disrespected or I feel frustrated when I'm waiting in the car and you are not yet ready, instead of saying you are always late or you are poor at keeping your time. You can say, I feel insecure within the month when we don't have money saved up, instead of saying you always spend all the money and we are at risk. The moment you can change the conversation from you to I, it allows the person to hear you without immediately trying to prepare a response or an attack or a defense. The word I was looking for is defense. Okay? So use I statements instead of you statements. They are both vowels, right? I-O-U. Yeah. I statements instead of you statements. My English teacher is watching. Miss Addy, please forgive me. All those degrees and you don't know vowels. I can hear you saying that in your head. Anyway. Number 5, validate your partner's feelings. Validate your partner's feelings. You don't have to agree with your partner to validate their feelings. Validating your partner's feelings means you are acknowledging their emotions and showing empathy, even if you don't agree. So one of the common ones that wives say is, I don't feel you love me. And most responses from husbands is, how can you say I don't love you? I pay the bills. I take the children to school. When your mother was sick, we sent money home. I did A, B, C, D. How can you say you don't love me? I feel is not always a fact. Feelings are not facts, but feelings are important. So if she says, I don't feel you love me, this is not the time to prove you love her. This is the time you hold her hand and say, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you feel I don't love you, but I really want you to know I love you. You are the most important thing to me in this world. You are not defending, you are validating their feelings, and you are understanding that you can feel a certain way. If your husband says, I feel you don't respect me in this marriage, it's not now saying, if I didn't respect you, would I have taken your name? And I did this the last time. And even when I have work at the office and you call, I leave it. No. You say, I'm so sorry you feel that way. You are not agreeing, but you are acknowledging the person's feelings, which is extremely important. Number 6, avoid reading minds or assuming. You cannot look at your partner and read their mind. Okay? So stop trying. You look at their face, you're saying, she's angry I came home late from work. But she could be angry that you said you were going to call her mom to ask about the sick father-in-law and you didn't. So what do? Ask. Assuming you know what your partner is thinking can lead to misunderstandings and miscommunication. It's important to ask questions and clarify any assumptions. So ask questions. And wives, when your husband asks, have I done something wrong? Tell them. Don't keep going with nothing. No, tell them. Tell them. So don't assume, ask questions and ask follow-up questions. And when they tell you, work on what they have said. Okay? We are looking at 10, and I'm at number 5 now, I think. 10 simple communication tips that make a big difference in marriage. These are basic things that can solve quarrels in marriage, that can make you happier in marriage, or even in your relationship. All right. So we said avoid reading minds was number 6. Number 7, avoid bringing up the past. Now this happens a lot with wives and some husbands. If you have said you forgive me, you don't need to raise what I did in the past to lay the foundation for the argument of what I have done today. Let's keep the conversation on the problem of today. You always do that. 4 years ago, when we were about to travel, that's the same thing you did. I even remember on our wedding day, and you've been married for 25 years, for heaven's sake. Okay? So avoid bringing up the past. Bringing up the past events or arguments can lead to resentment and derail the current discussion. It's important to focus on present issues at hand and not recollect the past. Let's say, for instance, during a discussion about finances, the husband avoids bringing up past purchases or debts that have already been resolved. So let's say, for instance, your husband invested in one of these financial institutions that collapsed, or crypto. He took all the family savings and put it in crypto. And you guys had to have a long conversation about it. He's apologized about it. When you are discussing finances, you don't go and say, we would have been in a better place if someone had not taken all our money and put it in crypto. For heaven's sake. Our money will not be finished if someone had not bashed the car. We've discussed that she bashed the car. My wife says I shouldn't say women are bad drivers. So we've discussed that he bashed the car. But why are you bringing it up now that we are talking about money? And yes, he cheated 5 years ago. So at some point, you have to let it go. All right. Number 8, show empathy. Empathy means putting yourself in your partner's shoes and trying to understand their perspective. I'm putting myself in your shoes and I'm trying to understand what you are going through. This can help create a deeper connection and strengthen the relationship. So empathize. If I came home late from work and I had to cook a meal, would I be smiling? So yes, she's come home from work, she's tired and she's frowning and you say, you two, can't you smile around the house? You are changing the mood in the house. No, she's tired. She came from work. If you were at home the whole day talking to children and say, put it down, and this one is saying he beats me and she beats me and so on and so forth, how would you feel? If you had just taken 3 flights, a connecting flight, had just got home, have a headache, and then they turn to you and say, you don't pay attention to us. Why didn't you share my picture on your status that I sent to you? How would you feel? Empathy. So once you begin to put yourself in your partner's shoes, it's easier to diffuse a tight situation and have better communication. I'm nearly done. I have 2 more to go. 2 more to go. Set aside distractions, your phones, your TV, anything that is taking your attention away from the communication or the discussion at hand. Put it aside for the time being. It's rude that she's talking to you and you are on Instagram. It's totally annoying that she is talking to you and you are watching, let's say, Liverpool trash Manchester United by 7 goals. All right? Put the trashing aside and listen to the conversation. Yes, I went there. So number 9 is set aside all distractions. Number 10 is try to always end on a positive note. That's a big one for me. I haven't mastered that yet. But try to always end on a positive note where you're able to say, hey, I know we are struggling now and it doesn't feel like it, but I just want you to know I love you. I'm still committed to this marriage. So the person is able to separate the issue that was discussed from the feelings. Ending conversations on a positive note can help create a sense of closure and leave both partners feeling heard and appreciated. For instance, let's say there's a discussion between Uriah and Bathsheba about an upcoming trip that they have to make. The wife can express her gratitude towards her husband for planning the trip anyway, even though she may not agree with some aspects of the trip. So end on a positive note. Try your best to end on a positive note. All right. This has been the Marriage Clinic podcast. We've looked at 10 simple things you can do to improve your communication. We said number 1, take turns talking and listening. Number 2, pay attention to nonverbal cues. Number 3, don't interrupt. Number 4, use I statements instead of you statements. Number 5, validate your partner's feelings. Number 6, avoid mind reading. Ask questions. Number 7, avoid bringing up the past from 1865. Number 8, show empathy. Number 9, set aside distractions. Number 10, end on a positive note. We'll be back with Ask Uncle Josh, where I answer your questions. Okay, so we are here with Ask Uncle Josh. What's the question from Chantel today? Why do I always have the pattern of picking the wrong partners? Is it spiritual? Whoosh. So Chantel, here I'm guessing you keep picking people who break your heart or people who cheat on you or people who do the wrong things. And you're wondering, is it a spiritual problem? Well, it could be a spiritual problem, but a lot of the time I tend to avoid wanting us to jump very quickly to it being a spiritual issue. First of all, if you have been through problematic situations, maybe a difficult father, an abusive father, or certain things, sometimes you end up choosing people that abuse you again. People who have been abused have a way of choosing people who have abused them before. So what you need to do is to sit down and ask yourself, what about me is attracted to people who behave in this way? Probably there's just something about you that likes bad boys. Or maybe because your love language is somewhere around communication, somewhere in that direction, you love guys who are sweet with their tongue, who can say the right things, and they end up being players. So I would say, look at yourself and look at what about you is attracted to that bad side. I will say, check the pond you are fishing in. All right. If you came to my fish pond and you tried to catch a fish, you would catch catfish because I grow catfish. If you went to a different pond where they are growing tilapia, you would catch tilapia. If you keep picking guys from the nightclub, what do you expect? Hit and run. So sometimes you just need to look at where you are picking the guys again. And if you're looking for good guys, come to the church I belong to, King's Temple. There are a lot of good guys there. Anyway, that's just a joke. There are good guys there. There are bad guys. But anyway, so I would say number one, check out what about you is attracted to that. Number two, check out where you are picking guys from. And then also, it doesn't hurt to pray about it. All right. I hope I've answered that question well. Take good care of yourself. We'll be back next week with another interesting topic. Bye-bye.